What is the true nature of Ryomen Sukuna? Is he truly demonic in nature or simply a malevolent man? Today we're going to take a look at the King of Curses and see what we can discern about his true origin. Hailing from the golden age of sorcery, Ryomen Sukuna was such a blight he was remembered by Jujutsu society for over 1,000 years. However, there's clearly much more to the past of Ryomen Sukuna than simply being a menace. Given his relationship with characters like Angel, knowing Kenjaku, who was friends with Tengen, Jujutsu sorcery in Buddhism had been preached by Tengen for around 200 years prior to Sukuna's first mention. Kenjaku and Tengen as well could be older than the Nara period itself. We have sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen who are from the 2nd century AD who have made binding vows with Kenjaku. It should be noted this is Drew's second incarnation, so he could very well be older than Kenjaku and Tengen. But I would say that Kenjaku and Tengen are probably around the same age, so at least 1200 years old. But what we can guarantee from this is that cursed energy was utilized far before Tengen ever started preaching Jujutsu. So what can we learn from this? Well, Sukuna was probably not the only asshole. Because let me tell you guys, even though Tengen was on the side of our protagonist, they seem like a real piece of shit. Tengen is one of the most hypocritical characters in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. Despite all the preachings of Buddhism, enlightenment, and reincarnation, Tengen effectively steals the bodies of young women to maintain the barriers that she decided to make. Being a Star Plaza vessel is a horrific fate, regardless of how they want to justify it to themselves. How does any of this relate to Ryomen Sukuna, you ask? Well, Ryomen Sukuna is also highly likely to be older than the Heian period. Kenjaku directly compared Tengen's appearance to that of Ryomen Sukuna's, and her appearance was stated to be the result of accelerated aging. This has a tremendous amount of implications for Ryomen Sukuna's age. I hope you guys are ready to go deep. In Sukuna's battle with the Maharaga, he directly relates the Maharaga to Yamada no Orochi, a mythological Japanese 8-headed serpent who was mentioned in texts dating back to 712 AD. While this could be referencing the Orochi Shikigami, this is very specific. This could have been a completely different Shikigami or an ancient sorcerer he faced that passed into legend like himself. The first mentions of the real-world Ryomen Sukuna are in a book from 720 AD, which is also slightly before the Heian era. And while Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't directly pull from the actual mythology, this would line up with them both being a little bit older. Because whatever Sukuna was, or whoever he used to be, he was 100% a prodigy. Taking into account the direct references to Catholicism, things like Jacob's ladder being used to cleanse Sukuna. While it's unclear if Angel always says this while she uses Jacob's ladder, given everything we know about Sukuna, his status as the disgraced one, I think that he is much older than we originally thought. Considering the story of Jacob's ladder is one of Jacob trying to escape his older twin brother, and given the place of twins in Jujutsu Kaisen, I do believe that Ryomen Sukuna either had a twin brother or a conjoined twin brother. It would partially explain his appearance compared to other sorcerers, and the urban legend that likely inspired Ryomen Sukuna in this series also directly involved conjoined twins, and the same ritual that was just referenced in chapter 216. I think Ryomen Sukuna's fall from grace directly relates to him murdering his own brother. Because just like Esau in the story of Jacob's ladder, Sukuna and his brother likely had completely different wants in this world. And I think this is part of the reason he treats Yuji the way he does. Because Yuji is either directly created from or deeply reminds him of his own brother. If the soul and body are intrinsically linked in Jujutsu Kaisen, what does that mean for the souls of two individuals who share the same body? Because in Sukuna's case, this guy had one too many senzu beans. Given his titles and his direct references to being a demon, he fits the archetype of the Jujutsu devil. If a domain expansion is the reflection of your soul, this guy's is called Malevolent Shrine. And that sounds unfortunately evil that he has malevolence in his literal soul. And wherever Riko went, I doubt Sukuna's dying to find out. Because right now, we're going to talk about the man Sukuna used to be. With his status as a fallen, him wearing robes in his innate domain, him being directly linked to characters like Angel, this guy was probably a priest of some kind. And throughout Jujutsu Kaisen, we see hints to the man that Sukuna was. And no better scene in Jujutsu Kaisen exemplifies this than his fight with Jogo, where at the end of Jogo's life, he looks at him in the eye and says, "Stand proud, you're strong." And not with anger or sarcasm, but instead these words come from a place of melancholy, because something in Sukuna's life led to him prioritizing strength above everything else. And I think that this is because at one point in Sukuna's life, he felt weakness. And during this exchange, he also mentions Jogo's want to become human. And it looks like he's almost taken aback by this, because from what we can gather, this is probably the opposite of what Sukuna wanted. And I believe this directly ties into why he hates Yuji so much, because Yuji's empathy and love for everybody pretty much goes directly against everything Sukuna gave up in his life, on top of actively going against what he currently stands for. I think this is what makes Sukuna such an intriguing villain, is that he is totally irredeemable at this point in time. But you can see the core reasons that the shift to his current self happened come out in things like his fight with Jogo, is that he found his own self-worth and strength. There have been multiple hints at Sukuna's inability to heal damage to the soul. The fact he's directly compared to Tengen, who's turning into some weirdo enlightened soul entity. And there's also a statement by Maki about the Soul Cutter Sword and its ability to harm him. This guy's soul has probably been torn apart like putty and put back together like 17 times, and now it's just baloneyed. At this point in Jujutsu Kaisen's story, these three are Jujutsu mob bosses. They're responsible for pretty much every single bad thing that's happened in the past 1,000 years for the current state of Jujutsu society as an institution. Tengen is probably directly responsible for things like the Six Eyes even existing. Prior to Toji being an absolute unit and breaking destiny between Tengen and the Six Eyes, the Six Eyes' purpose in the world really seemed to just bodyguard Tengen's merger. Characters like Kenjaku, Sukuna, and Tengen go so much deeper than a Six Eyes Limitless user, and I love this, because all of our characters have been stuck fighting against the machinations of these people. Tengen refers to Kenjaku's plans as his plan for evolution. Considering Kenjaku could barely make the barrier for this Culling Games, Tengen is probably responsible for the first one. These two were absolutely working together at one point. Tengen refers to Toji having no cursed energy as him having escaped from it. These two are hiding so much, and all the threads are there, we just gotta look deep. Gojo, when you said you want to get rid of the higher-ups, I don't think you knew how deep that went. Because these guys aren't just fighting against evil sorcerers, they're fighting against the architects of the institution that they were brought up in. And every one of these characters has a role to play, because Gojo's dream will come to fruition by the end of this series. And like most shonen, it'll probably fall to teenagers to beat up the ancient deities. Regardless of what their overall intentions were, Tengen and Kenjaku are not good people. Tengen probably had more regrets than Kenjaku did. However, the whole, oh no, I can't be enlightened or my barriers will fall thing is a problem you made. You want to not be enlightened? Ask Gojo to hollow purple you next time. By the end of Jujutsu Kaisen, I expect cursed energy to be removed from the world entirely, exist in a different form than it currently is, or at the very least not be hoarded by a thumb. But that's just my opinion. As far as Sukuna's brother is concerned, there's obviously something cooking in his backstory, and this definitely seems like one of the more likely areas for it to go. I'll be honest, I hate Tengen. I hate Tengen more than I hate Kenjaku and Sukuna. At least these two don't pretend to be good. Thank God Tengen's super ugly, otherwise they might actually have stands. The difference between someone like this dying and someone like Tengen dying is that all the Crunchyroll comments are going to cry for one of them and not care about the other. So I gotta end this video. Okay, like and subscribe, that's what we say here on YouTube. Like this video if you like Jujutsu Kaisen, slam it like it's red and blue coming together for hollow purple. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep all that in.